Hello, I'm Claire Riley, and you're listening to the Recovering Perfectionist podcast, where we talk all things perfectionism in business, parenting, relationships, body stuff, and heaps of other things as well. My lovely guest today is the wonderful Fran Maunton, who is a Feng Shui practitioner at Feng Shui Fortune. She's based in WA in Australia, and she loves working with mums struggling to manage family, work, life, and help them find their way to a calmer, happier, healthier place for themselves and their family. Welcome, Fran. I'm so glad we got here.
Thanks so much, Claire. It's fabulous to be here.
We finally got here. We were just talking before we started the recording that we actually had this scheduled about a year ago. So we've only rescheduled once, but it took us 12 months to circle back. So glad we finally got here.
Yeah, yeah,
So Fran, I'll hand over to you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your biz and what you're doing these days?
certainly. Thank you so much. I am a Feng Shui practitioner, and actually, in the next couple of days, I'll be having my 19th anniversary since I've been in
Wow.
business, which completely blows my mind. That
Uh,
number one, that I've been in business and for that long, and that I've been doing Feng Shui for that long. Because
wow.
quite honestly, it feels like 19 minutes. It's mad. Anyway, so I am a mum myself and have interests in all kinds of things. The sport of lacrosse has been a lifelong passion that I continue to be involved in. And I became involved in a family support group when our first daughter was born with a heart condition, and I stay somewhat involved with them still, although I did have a very heavy involvement with them for several years.
Hmm.
Um, which is actually the reason that I ended up in Feng Shui. I do say that I was divinely guided to it, but I that same daughter passed away when she was just over 10 months old,
Mm.
and in the I hesitate to say recovery from grief because I don't think you do that, but
Mm.
in the process of grieving for her and subsequently having two more daughters, I found myself in a really dark place and a very big struggle to get through each day. And happened across a Feng Shui practitioner who kind of did a party plan. So I got her to come to my house, and she made some predictions about how our life would be in the next year,
Mm.
none of which made any sense to me. I have always had a passing interest in that kind of stuff, but what she was talking about was like just blowing my mind. I like sounded like gobbledygook. Anyway, I sent her on her way because she said stuff that I didn't like. So um, that
So inconvenient.
yes,
Yes.
exactly. I sent her on her way, and we just kept drinking and eating cake, and then literally on the day that she predicted things would happen, they all kind of started to happen. So
Oh my gosh.
it became difficult, and a whole range of things. And like nothing was disastrous, but it just piqued my curiosity. And like I said, this is actually 20 years ago. So I headed to the library, not to Google, and spent an extraordinary amount of time there examining and reading and trying to figure things out, and which really only served to confuse me.
Mm.
As months went by, I happened across another lady who I got her to come and consult for us. And so I literally, the day after she'd been here, ran around, did everything, and our lives changed dramatically and profoundly
Wow.
immediately. And that really just sent me into a complete pit of fascination about how could it be that I changed the color of a pillow slip, put some candles here, and did half a dozen things that were not, nobody would have walked into my house and known that I'd really done anything.
Mm.
But so many things changed. So
Wow.
my husband's sleeping patterns changed. We as a couple kind of cleared the fog from our head and went, oh, like, look where we are. That's not where we want to be, and let's find a new way. And both of my daughters had significant changes as well. Number
Mm.
one was my relationship with my youngest daughter, which was very volatile, and it really turned the corner. We had some interesting behavior habits established by then to work through, but we did make a significant shift with that change. And my other daughter had complained a lot of an aching body, and was a little bit paranoid about her
Mm,
surviving.
of course.
So I'd been to doctors over and over, like, there's something wrong, and they couldn't find anything because there was nothing wrong. But several months and probably even more than a year down the track, I realised that the energy in her room was actually, while it was quite positive, actually was too busy for a bedroom.
Right.
So she would sleep, but her body wasn't being rested.
Wow.
Put things in place that were specifically for her and specifically for that room. That really just almost magically went away.
Oh.
It was amazing, amazing. So you see why I just fell into this bit of fascination,
Mm.
also based on the sense for me that, I was 45 by then. I was what I consider to be a responsible citizen and a parent, and I'd had a lot of support to get myself out of where the difficult place I was in, from family and friends and medical people.
Yeah.
Nothing made the difference that Feng Shui did. So
Wow.
I felt really unjust that I got to be an adult and I didn't know that I could have done that.
Yep.
We could have avoided several years of suffering. And
Yep.
in the big picture of things, maybe we were meant to suffer that long. I don't know. But what transpired, of course, is my fascination turns to talking. Number one, I love talking, but I just kept saying to all of my friends, like, oh, we did this and you won't believe what happened. And so anyway, some months after that, the lady that consulted for us was advertising to teach people Feng Shui.
Okay.
And I just said to my husband, I think I really want to do that. Like, I didn't really have a picture of working in it, I don't think. Certainly not being a business person, but and he's the guy that says yes 99 times out of 100. So off I went to study, and in the studying, I went through the process of thinking, firstly thinking I'm never going to understand this, but then the things that we were learning was like, oh my, that just makes so much sense. Like that is simple. And then that kind of transpired to, actually, I think I already know this stuff.
Mm.
It's not necessarily, I could launch into past life stuff, which I kind of have a sense that has occurred. But so much of it is just about our broken connection to nature and to
Mm.
cycles and the cycles of life and the cycles of nature.
Mm.
So it was just a fascinating process to get to gather a much deeper understanding of the practice and the science
Mm.
of it. And like, I just couldn't help but run around and say to my friends, please let me help you do this. Please let me do this. So I
Yep.
did. And then I went and studied. Absolutely. The more I learned, the more I wanted to know. And I really am still in the same place.
Yeah.
That also that provided for me was that it opened doors to other possibilities and to other practices and to other energy.
Oh, yep. Yep.
So I just look back at that and go, really, Feng Shui wasn't the complete answer to the things that I personally was challenged by, or that as a result that our family was challenged by. But it absolutely opened the door, and it's almost like a big hand came into that big dark pit and just picked me up and went, have a look around.
Ugh.
You could do things differently.
Wow.
Mm.
Well, I don't know about everyone else, but I've just been sitting here like just covered in waves and waves of goosebumps. So
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that story with me. I've known you for years and I didn't know a few of those things. Obviously, I know a lot of it, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing the beginning of that journey with us as well. And I think it's really interesting. Like, we've obviously spent some time together in person at our retreat last year in
Yeah.
2024. And I certainly noticed like just these little tidbits that, someone would just mention something in passing and you would, offer some advice. And they're like little tweaks and energetic as well as feng shui. And I think, unfortunately, feng shui has a bit of maybe a bit misunderstood. And, I've now know it's, a fair bit about it, I think, through you and other people who I've worked with. But there used to be this whole like, well, if you feng shui your house, then it means you've got to throw away all of your furniture and all of your pots and pans and start completely afresh, and you'll have baskets full of metal in one corner and
Yeah.
salty things hanging from the corner, and you have to have all these mirrors and no cactus and all that sort of thing. And personally, I sort of felt like, "Oh, it sounds too hard," but knowing you and hearing like little bits and pieces and how it actually impacts, the energy, which then impacts your physical health and your mental health and all of that sort of thing. And when I've questioned you, we were talking about the ensuite and the drain near the sleeping
Yeah.
and little things like that you just never think of. And you make this tiny little change, like shutting the ensuite door at night instead of leaving it open,
Yeah.
makes a difference. It's just that you don't even have to get new
Yes.
candles. You can just shut the freaking door. Like, it's so
Okay.
doable. And
Yeah.
having a chat with someone like you said, who can just pick you up by the head, show you around and be like, what, like, have a look over here and have a look. We just need to make a few little tweaks,
Yeah.
makes such a big difference. So is there, I mean, you talk a lot about harmony and happiness and health and calm and that sort of thing. Is there, like, are there some sort of common culprits in homes that um, stuff up the energy for people or that make things feel prickly and yucky? Are there kind of some patterns that you see? Maybe it's a modern thing, maybe it's a women thing,
Mhm.
that a lot of people like, if you could just shake a few people and be like, if you would just change this one thing, like, what
Yes.
are those sort of things?
Yes. Um, yes, there are. Where would I start? Um, there are in as from a classical kind of feng shui answer to that. Um, clutter is always going to be come up first because the and clutter just means having either too many things in the space or not being ordered or having things that you don't use
Mm,
in the space. And the reason that that is significant is because the entire process of feng shui is about understanding chi and how which it really is just energy, which is kind of, I'd say to people, just think about it as air.
mm,
And how can we make the air flow through the home easily? So chi likes to travel on the wind, and it likes to meander around places. It prefers curves rather than squares.
mm,
Um, so, like we live in square houses, number one, there's a problem. So we have to kind of do things to make sure really that we can get air to move around.
mm,
And it's just like, I guess a key thing is if you find it difficult to walk into and through your house, chi will find it difficult as well.
mm.
You have to move to avoid things. Chi has to do that as well.
Right.
And then the more things it has to avoid, the more opportunity there is for it to become stuck and stagnant.
Mm.
And, stuck and stagnant is stuffy, and that's what happens to your life, really.
Yep.
So the
Yep.
first thing would be, and, like you don't have to run in and, like you said, throw everything out and start again, but just be conscious of, oh, that thing's been there for 3 months and it's big and it's clunky and it's in the way, or that's not where it belongs. When that's there, it's not used.
Mm,
And when things are not used, everything is created for a purpose. So even inanimate objects, if they're not used for their purpose, they become stagnant as well.
mm,
And they
mm,
kind of give off a stagnant energy. So look at everything that you have in there, and in your home, and is it used? Do you love it? Um, and does it have a place to live? Really,
mm.
that's just start with those things. Start with one room. Start with the entry in your house.
Yep.
And the thing about that also is it's not, you can't just jump in and do it once and then just
Sure.
expect that you'll
Yeah.
be fine forever. It does need to be an ongoing thing. It's a bit like, you know, if I eat a really healthy meal today, that means I'll be fine for a month. It's not, you know, Feng Shui is the same. It
Sure.
is, and in saying it's an ongoing and kind of daily practice doesn't mean that it has to be big and large and overwhelming, but you
Yeah.
do need to be conscious of what you have in your space. If
So
you have things, if you have things in your house that you don't like, just get rid of them.
yep.
If you walk into a room and at a giant picture that is great to fill up space, but you hate it,
Mm.
or it gives you the creeps or whatever, just get rid of it. Have a blank space for a while. And, you know, like it's being thinking a bit more deeply about the things that you surround yourself with,
Yeah.
which is not unlike thinking deeply about the people you surround yourself with.
So true.
And the other thing,
Hey, can I, before you go on, I just want to ask a quick question
yeah,
about this because this is a really pertinent question when you're decluttering. And I did the whole KonMari thing probably 10 years ago or whatever. And there was a big conversation around, but it's got sentimental value. I can't get rid of it, even though I freaking hate it. I hate it so much. It's
yeah,
hanging above my toilet because that's the only place that I'll allow it to be because people don't see it unless they go to the toilet. Um, but I still hate it. And then, but it was made by an auntie and like handmade. And
yeah.
do you have any energetic help or support or anything, any tips for
Yes.
people who have like a heap
Well,
of stuff they
yeah,
don't like, but feel like they have to keep
yeah,
to keep
yeah.
someone else happy, basically?
I would argue if you've got something that's ugly that you hate in the toilet, in a place where your body actually needs to be in harmony, is going to impact you even then. Um, just FYI.
Actually,
Um, yes, that does happen. I have trained myself into the belief that regifting is a good and proper thing to do.
yep.
So I buy things for people with the thought process that if this is not right, I'm sending them the message that they're well, open to regifting.
Sure. Yep.
So you kind of do have to pick up that, find a way to make that comfortable, I think.
Mm,
Uh, for me, it's all that stuff is also about, you know, like the world and, you know, world's resources and that kind of stuff. So, and making use of something is, if
mm,
somebody else can make use of it, then I just find that that makes me feel better.
yeah.
But if sentiment is important to you, and I totally understand because I was once a very sentimental person, I recommend that you could find somebody else in the family to give it to
Yep.
who also have a connection to that person,
Mm,
photograph of it and keep that for old time's sake. Um,
yeah.
but
It's
at
a
the end
tricky
of
one,
the
isn't
day,
it?
at the end of the day, you just have to make a decision about
Yep.
how do I want to feel on a daily basis.
So true. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
also think like if it was me, if I'd given something someone and they didn't like it, I would hate to think that they kept it
yeah,
because they thought it might hurt my feelings if they
yeah,
didn't. I would rather them appreciate the
yeah,
thought and the fact that there was a gift
mhm,
and then lovingly let it go. Perhaps don't,
yeah,
you know, let me see it in the rubbish bin when I come over next time, but I, you know, I won't go hunting for it in your house if I,
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
suspect. So you know, and I'm sure that people who do that sort of thing also don't want you to think, oh, that bloody picture that Aunt whoever gave to
Yeah,
us every
yeah,
time. I'd rather you look at a
yeah,
photo of me or
yeah,
something else that reminded you of me in a nice light rather than that fucking photo
exactly. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
cool. Thank
yeah.
you. Thanks for letting me take you on a little
That's
tangent there.
that's right. And interestingly, I think that in my saying that I absolutely was very sentimental, which was a learned behavior, I think.
Yeah.
But what I found is the more I understood about energy, but also the more I came to like myself more and love myself more, the more I was willing to go, I don't actually have to have this thing in my presence to remember the experience of it, the person, the joy of it, the anything. It doesn't have to be physically in my presence.
Represented by a thing. Yeah, so true. Yeah, yeah.
That could be just me, but then my way of dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have the same need to be physically connected to things
Yeah.
anymore.
And on the flip side, so we've just talked about clutter being a thing that can, stifle chi and just totally fuck up your energy and
Mhm.
completely. Um, I think there's also on the other side, which you've sort of touched on, is having things that do light you up. Like
Yeah.
I know you've talked about, and I feel like it's, a moving feast. And every time I change something or whatever, like I've got a heap of candles, and I don't know, you can probably see a few things here, but what's behind me is what I see when I'm sitting on the couch. So
Mhm.
everything behind me, there's a bookshelf that's like 8 by 2 squares, and my
Mhm.
books are in rainbow color. And I've got my favorite paintings, and I've got a few, beautiful
Mhm.
little sculptures and plants and candles. And every time I sit on that couch, whether I'm watching telly or whatever, I look up and I just feel like, oh, I just love this space. There's everything
Yeah.
there I love looking at. I either has a nice memory or I just really like it.
Yeah.
And I think, it's not just about taking stuff away. It's also about having those little positive
Yeah.
anchors and
Yeah.
things that you enjoy looking at, whether or not it means anything to anyone else, or it's like, high design or what you got
Yeah.
from the fancy shop or whatever. So what's your tip on, having more stuff that are things that you
I
actually love?
Yes, I agree totally. I don't think that feng shui requires you to be a minimalist,
Yeah.
um, but it just requires you to be ordered and, as you say, to have things that will be used and that bring you joy, really.
Mm,
And on that, really take notice of when you do bring things into the house, your home or into your space, and how and um, what happens after that. So if you bring in a whole new bookcase and you fill that up, and how does life continue after that?
mm,
Does it feel good? Is everybody happy with that? Or has arguments started to happen?
mm.
Do you get headaches now? Has your money gone crazy?
Oh my goodness.
And like on the surface of things, how would those things be connected? But if you've made a change and something significant in your life has changed,
Yeah.
then either for the good or better or worse, then it's worth going back to going, oh, okay, making that connection. That came in and
Yeah.
that changed.
Yeah.
Maybe that's done something with the feng
Do you
shui.
know what? The first time that I probably really recognized that was I heard you talking about cleaning your front door as
Mhm.
a money and abundance thing.
Yeah.
And when I heard you talk about it, I'd cleaned my door either that morning or the day before because
Mhm.
it gets a lot of rain on it, so then it gets
Yeah.
really dusty. And I kept noticing it for months, like, oh, I've got to clean the door. And I cleaned the door, and then I had an unexpected burst of income come in that same
Mhm.
day. And
Yeah.
then you were talking about it. I was like, oh my God, it literally happened.
Mhm.
Like, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have noticed. I wouldn't have paid any attention to
I haven't thought about it.
cause and
Mhm.
effect
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
had I not heard you talk about it. And that really
Yeah.
kind of piqued my interest. I'm like, oh, what else could I
Mhm.
be,
Yeah.
doing? And, you and I've talked about, the flow of energy. And you talked before about, your energy can get stuck. She can get stuck. But I've also got like a long cylinder in my living space, and the doors and
Mhm.
windows are usually all open at the back and front, which means
Yeah.
there's nowhere for it to stop. And it just goes like a super
Mhm.
highway. So maybe we
Mhm.
need to also slow it down a little bit in my
Yes,
life. So
exactly. I would suspect all of those plants you've got there are doing a very good job of slowing that down.
we've got lots of oxygen. I have to
Yeah.
sneak new plants into my house because my kids are like, where are we going to sleep? They're going to start taking over our bedroom soon.
So
So I've got to
I sort
sneak.
of wish I could keep them healthy enough to do that. I just want to go back to the one other thing that I was going to say when your
Yeah.
question was what's an absolute must or must not do.
Yes.
The other thing is in the 21st century is 21st century things. So
Mm,
things like televisions in bedrooms and keeping your telephones in the bedroom next to your head.
mm,
Um, all of those things, I suspect that probably 99 out of every 100 reports I write for people are somewhere in there. It's just take the television out of the bedroom, and
mm,
then and which is most often met with resistance. So
Really?
there's other things that you can do, but the reality is in your bedroom that, like I was saying about my daughter, the energy needs to be calm
Mm.
and restful. And while electronic and electric things are in there, they never stop their forces, electrical forces going through them. So literally energies
Sure. Yep.
all um, and that doesn't give your body an opportunity to rest. So
Yeah.
if you don't sleep well, don't use the television to put yourself to sleep because it's not helping at all. It probably
Mm.
does put you to sleep, but it's not helping your the overall picture of what you're trying to
Sure.
do.
Yep.
If you don't sleep well, if you have health issues, even if they're consistent minor things, just flat out take your electrics and your electronics out of your bedroom.
Yep.
Don't take it out of anywhere else. Take them out of there. That
Okay. Yep.
uh,
Yep.
there's a whole range of 21st century things that have to be considered within the traditional feng shui.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing I was going to say is just to clarify that within the whole conversation that we've been having, there's actually lots of different ways to do feng shui, and there's different schools of feng shui that work specifically on different areas.
Sure.
So I think that is the reason why people have come to that kind of overall belief that it's too hard because you've got to do X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
But the thing is that, and that's why it's confusing to research yourself
Mm.
because you don't actually know, oh, this school is only talking about your neighborhood, or this school is only talking about the standard non-dynamic kind of feng shui. So
Mm.
and I often say to people, like, it's really a little bit like massage. All of those schools of feng shui work and have their place. But like massage, that you can have a massage for relaxation and it's doing its job. You can have a
Yep.
massage for remedial massage and that's also doing its job.
Yep.
Feng shui is much the same. There's
Yeah.
different schools of feng shui
Interesting. Yeah.
that focus on different areas. So
Mm.
that's kind of the seat of confusion for people.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good to know. And like I said, I feel like I've had a very big education knowing you for so many years and just seeing, the ins and outs of your business and how you talk about it, that it's not all, a certain amount of metal and color of
Yeah,
some sort in a room. It's all about the energetics and the flow, which I'd never, to be honest, never put together. And I used to have a book, I don't think I've got it anymore, that I reckon I bought when I was about 15 called
yeah,
Feng Shui for Beginners or something
yeah,
like that. I can still see it. It had a blue cover. It was a square kind of thing. And I
yeah.
was a bit obsessed with it, but it was very um specific and methodical and like you must have and you must get rid of, and it was kind of
Yeah,
like, oh, but like, can't we work around that? It was, it was very formulaic, I
yeah,
suppose. There was no personalization, which is understandable when it's a book and you're
yeah.
15 and
And
you don't really understand it.
yeah,
Um,
when we were when I had our house first feng shui, I was very determined there will be no Chinese stuff, like no feng shui stuff.
yep.
So I had to figure out how to do that really from a place of no knowledge.
Yep.
But and I did work closely with the feng shui consultant. I probably called her 25 times a day for months. But so it's possible, and I work with people like that. It's like you don't have to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. Like,
Cool.
what have you got, and how can we figure out to make that work for you? So
Awesome.
it might be this is the best recommendation for this space,
Yeah.
and we say in the context of the whole consultation, we might aim for that, for save the money to do that. But in the meantime, how can we manage that? What have
Sure.
you got to do?
Yep.
And yeah,
Yeah.
so
Awesome.
a lot of what I am doing with people is going through that whole process of finding ways to implement things that will help them manage the feng shui in a manner that's pertinent and personal to
And
them.
actually doable. Yeah.
And doable, yeah,
Yeah.
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 And literally you don't have to jump in and do everything in a day.
Yeah.
Um, it just make a start and
Yeah.
baby steps.
Love it. And I know you talk a lot about seasons and cycles and, pertinent dates and all of that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
what works today isn't necessarily going to be
no,
perfect
that's
in
right.
3 months' time either. So understanding that it is a fluid thing. And,
Mhm.
the more I guess that you work with someone like you, that you understand like the key elements or the things that do stand out. Like I know now I'll never have a dirty door again. I'm going to keep that thing clean because it's bloody work. So, you can
Exactly.
probably cherry pick a few things as well that feel like it's accessible and it's
Yeah.
doable and I can, is sustainable. I can keep consistent at it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That is kind of gets like, more bang, little buck sort of thing,
Yeah.
makes little tweaks. And I think that's, super
And,
helpful.
and the other thing is that we actually, if you come to the realization that your home, the actual building, is its own sentient being that has its own destiny and energetic pattern,
Mm,
and therefore its own breath,
mm,
what we're actually doing with Feng Shui is helping your home breathe as deeply as you possibly can. So if you relate that to yourself, if you only breathe into your chest, then of course you'll have circulation issues or health issues on the extremities of your limbs. And it's the
sure.
same with your house. If you only breathing to the front, to the entrance, then she can't get to the back of the house or to the area that might be your wealth area, that might be your health area. So really try and imagine your house as your best friend and
Yeah.
do what you can to help it live the best life that it can so that it can support you.
That feels like a nice deep breath. I'm hoping to buy a house this year and I will be absolutely calling you.
That
Like,
will be very
before I
exciting.
move anything in, tell me
Mm.
everything.
Yes, yes. And
Oh, so good.
um, jump on my website then and grab the freebie that's there
Yes.
now called Making a Home Your Own. So it's a um, quick little story and some tips for things that you can do to make a new home your own. So
Awesome.
that by way of removing the energetic blueprint of the
Mm,
previous people and cleansing it so it's ready for you. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can, that has been written specifically for people when they move into the homes.
okay.
But in reality, they are practices that you should, or you certainly can implement if you've been in your house for 20 or
Sure.
30 years
Yeah.
as well.
It's a good starting point though. So
Yes,
that is
absolutely.
fengshuifortunes.com.
That's true.
.au.com forward
Oh,
slash freebies. Excellent.
yeah,
I'll pop that into the show
yeah.
notes as well for everyone too. Any final tips? If you could, if everyone who listens to this could just walk away with one little tip from Fran, what would it be?
Oh, which one will I pick?
So many to pick
I
from.
think it comes back to um, begin to make a connection
Mm,
to this inanimate, well, seemingly inanimate um, block of bricks or whatever your property is made of,
mm,
and see that as a living being
mm.
that does support or not
Or not.
all aspects of your life, all
Yeah.
aspects of your health and your wealth and your happiness is impacted
Yeah.
by what you live in.
Yeah.
And when I say that it's impacted, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's negatively impacted, but it could be positively impacted.
Yeah.
So become connected to that
Mm,
and become get to a point where you understand that um, it and everything in there has a purpose and
mm.
impacts how your life occurs for you.
Thank you so much. I, as you know, or possibly know, I've just done a massive declutter of my house
Mm.
and it has felt very good. But attaching to purpose, I think, is probably my next step because I know what, even though I probably took 2 carloads of stuff to, Vinnie's, and I've definitely filled up the wheelie bin a couple of times. I
Yeah.
now feel like now I can actually do the work. Like I've just gotten rid of all the
Yeah.
superfluous, obvious stuff.
Yeah.
And the next layer is probably a bit more purposeful
Yeah.
rather than just it doesn't fit me anymore or I don't like this anymore. The next thing is, yeah, definitely purpose because
Yeah.
I think that's a really big one. So thank you so much for sharing all of your beautiful wisdom,
Okay.
some of your a tiny little smidgen of your beautiful wisdom. I will obviously pop your links. And anyone who's listening, I absolutely urge you to go and check out Fran's shiny new website. It's very, very, very good. And her beautiful offers. She's got a bunch of freebies. Her social media is awesome. So all of those links will be around this recording, so you can go and check her out. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome, Claire. Thanks so much for asking, because you just know I love to chat, and chat about Feng Shui I could do endlessly.
You could. We'll have to have you on again. Or maybe I'll convince you to start your own podcast, but we'll talk about that another time. Thanks, Fran.